Welcome back, everyone. Today I will be reviewing Elden Ring. It's been a long time coming, but I finally got everything together, so here it goes. I want to be as transparent as humanly possible, so I must stress that this is a review/opinion piece hybrid. I will now start with my opening statement. Without sounding hyperbolic, I must say with all sincerity that judging Elden Ring was probably one of the most difficult tasks I thrust upon myself. The reason is obvious. If you're unfamiliar with my work, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of Souls games to begin with. But I wanted to see what the fuss was all about, and I have some mixed feelings about Elden Ring. Mostly positive, but still, some lingering doubts that I wanted to clarify, and will, later on, in this review. A friend of mine told me, Elden Ring is going to force other studios to do what Elden Ring has done, in regard to their environments, among other things. And I can't really argue with that. From Software has made some bold decisions regarding Elden Ring, some good, some silly, and some decisions that made me facepalm so hard I almost knocked myself out. You see, Elden Ring is a different beast. A snarling, foaming at the mouth, temperamental creature. It's a Souls game, and for those of you who know what I mean by that, well, good for you. But for those who may not know, allow me to explain. A Souls game consists of a dark fantasy RPG setting that focuses on combat that demands the most out of its player, on a mechanical level that is, with relatively long boss fights that tip the scales in favor of the boss rather than you, the player. This is purposeful, as this is how Souls games are played. They are designed to be difficult. For some, that is part of its charm. For others, it's a nightmare. Let's talk basics. In Elden Ring, after you eliminate an unwanted foe, they drop runes. These runes are the currency by which you will be able to level up. When you die, you drop the same runes you've collected, which means you must go back to where you died and recollect the runes that dropped when you died. Kind of like World of Warcraft. When you die, you gotta run back to your corpse and then reanimate yourself. It's kind of the same idea. After you die, and you will, a lot, you will be asked to be revived in either one of two places. These two options are a Stake of Marika, if I'm pronouncing that right, and I'm probably not, which is a statue, and the other option is to be resurrected at the nearest lost grace. You should choose which option is best for you based upon where you are, or where you think you are. Are you close to a lost grace? Do you even remember seeing a Stake of Marika anywhere? Well, then there you go. You also must acquire various types of smithing stones in order to upgrade your weapons and equipment. You will also need runes as payment alongside the smithing stones for your upgrades. In order to level up, you must rest at a lost grace, which are bright gold yellowish glowing lights emanating from the ground. These lost graces also function as a fast travel mechanism, which is awfully handy. Let's talk environment. Now, this is my favorite subject. I have never in my life played a game so fruitfully composed of differing settings, such varying landscapes, that I am confident that Elden Ring has pushed the envelope for world design in such a way that other studios must attempt to duplicate what Elden Ring has done or face the consequences of being left behind. I could be running through green fields with caved-in walls, followed by overgrown, moss-covered castles, to almost whimsical but entirely frightening red-blooded lakes with what appears to be oversized mushrooms scattered across the horizon. The environment changes so drastically, yet so convincingly, that the amount of love and attention to detail within the landscapes must be repeated in future titles of any open-world RPG. For once, I felt as if I was truly stepping foot into a totally different area as I opened more and more of the map. Exploration in this game is half the fun, and a great reason to play Elden Ring by itself. To put it bluntly, Elden Ring will reward you visually with one stunning setting after the other. Let's talk combat. I understand that this is a point of great contention to some, myself included, but I will be as fair as I can as I explain my playthrough of this game and what you might experience with your playthrough. The combat system demands absolute precision. Essentially, the combat involves you constantly evading enemy attacks, until you find an opening or an opportunity to strike. You must take that opportunity, somersault away, wait for the boss or enemy to run through their attack sequences, until you find that opening again. Rinse and repeat this process for literally all enemy encounters in this game. The best example I can give is old, but I think it's rather concise. Do you remember Mega Man? As in the first Mega Man? Do you remember the boss fight with the Yellow Devil, or otherwise known as the Rock Monster, in Dr. Wily's level? Do you remember how you had to be patient and memorize the Yellow Devil's attack patterns? The Yellow Devil used to transfer itself from one side of the screen to the next in tiny bits. But in order to survive this, you had to memorize when to jump over the pieces or stand still as he transferred across the screen. This is as close to a perfect analogy, or example, for Elden Ring's combat system that I can conjure. In short, you must memorize what the enemies in Elden Ring do, figure out when to counterattack. Be warned, this may take a long time as the enemies hit extremely hard and without prejudice. So, repeat fights is unavoidable, and in fact, inevitable. Like I said before, be prepared to die. A whole lot. In the hundreds, if not thousands of times. Let's talk audio. From Software did a fantastic job of crafting a highly specific soundscape for the combat system and the rest of the game. There are auditory cues that indicate whether you have successfully executed a kill shot, and some of the sound bites also convey an almost humorous, sloppy slashing sound for basic attacks. It's really kind of funny. Or maybe I have a sick sense of humor. Whatever the case. The soundtrack for Elden Ring is what you would expect out of an open-world dark fantasy game. There are somber scores, forbidding background noises, whooping, wailing, and occasionally even a little singing at really odd sections of the game. All in all, the audio in this game is top-notch, so there's nothing to complain about here. Let's talk adventure. Oddly, Elden Ring doesn't contain much in the quest department. There are quests, don't get me wrong, but they are few and far between. The quests that are available, you can guarantee that one of three things will happen. 1, you will wish you never accepted the quest to begin with. Number 2, you hand over something you never knew you acquired to begin with. And number 3, the quest will usually result in the quest giver's death, and that happens pretty much all of the time. In addition, there is no quest helper. There's no glowing lights, no dotted lines, or wind blowing that would lead you to the next quest or lead you to where or what you're supposed to do. The reason for this, in my estimation, is that the main quest line doesn't have to be explicitly told to you verbally, like we're all used to. The major quest line is visual this time. What do I mean? I mean that gigantic, glowing, gold-colored, shiny, happy tree that could be seen from literally anywhere on the map. That is your main quest. The obviousness of that tree made me chuckle, and I believe this is why this element of the game just might change the way open-world RPGs are made. There's not much that needs to be said when a gargantuan golden tree is observable from literally everywhere on the map. It's rather ingenious when you think about it. Instead of programming an NPC to verbally express to you what your next course of action should be, your course of action is staring you in the face at all times. So by exercising basic human curiosity, you travel towards that big fat golden tree. Thus, your adventure begins. Let's talk difficulty. Unless you've been living under Steven Seagal, you would have heard about the raging debate between modding or not to mod Elden Ring. Here are the facts. Elden Ring is ridiculously difficult. It requires an extraordinary amount of patience and concentration to become successful in the boss fights, or any other aspect of the game for that matter. If that doesn't sound like a fun time for you, it's not too complicated to mod the game. And you should, because it'll make the game a little easier for you. In short, if you're up for the challenge, then game on. If the difficulty is just too much for you, or you have personal responsibilities that prevent you from sinking the kind of time necessary into Elden Ring, then by all means, mod the game, and ignore the crazies. They can't hurt you. Let's talk the ugly. There are two major complaints I have regarding Elden Ring, and those two complaints become inconsequential since there are mods for both of them. As I played no more than 1 single hour of Elden Ring, my wife was trying to get my attention. Naturally, and because I'm a good husband, I answered, "Hold on, let me pause the game." Only to discover, while I was frantically trying to pause the game, I discovered that there is no pause feature. Let me repeat that. You cannot press pause in Elden Ring. From Software, that's borderline retarded. Almost every video game since the age of Nintendo has a pause feature. I don't think From Software could give me a logical reason behind foregoing something so incredibly basic as a pause feature. Referring to my earlier story, after I discovered the unfortunate lack of a pause function or feature, however you want to say it, I looked at my wife and sarcastically sneered, "Well, I don't think From Software has many married couples within their ranks. From Software, don't ever do that again. Making a super difficult game is understandable, and totally your prerogative. Not implementing a basic function of video gaming is inexcusable. Thankfully, there's a mod for a pause feature as well, and I highly encourage everyone to download that mod." My takeaway. There's a lot that this game has to offer. But if the difficulty is off-putting, don't worry, there are mods for that, and you can install them with minimal effort. Additionally, there are a few different variations of easy mode mods, and some of them do more for you than others. So if you want a challenge, but not a cholesterol spiking experience, read through the different easy mode mods available and pick the right one for you. Here's my experience with the game. I played over 60 hours of Elden Ring, and the first 32 hours was with no easy mode mod. The only mod I installed, almost instantly, was a pause feature. Other than that, I did not install any easy mode mods for the first 32 hours. I managed to learn the game. I adapted to the mechanics, and implemented strategies for defeating bosses. In other words, dear Soulsies, I got good. But here's the kicker for all you Soulsies out there. I do not prefer that challenge, so I downloaded an easy mode mod. That mode made the game hilariously and exceptionally more palatable. So the argument good means diddly squat to someone who possesses the skills to become successful in Elden Ring, but instead chooses not to play the game that way. Basically, my argument boils down to preference, not skill. Apparently, I have the skills necessary to succeed in Elden Ring, but I chose not to play that way. Look at the number of downloads for just one easy mode mod. If the number of downloads is any indication, clearly I'm not the only one who prefers a more relaxing gaming experience. And that's all for this review. Thanks for listening, and I hope you did enjoy it. Be sure to upvote the crap out of this video and Hadouken the subscribe button for me. Will ya? That would be fan-freaking-tastic. Until next time, friends, have fun.